What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another brand new video, actually the first one of 2024. I kind of decided to take this year and bring back a lot of the old content. I kind of wanted to take last year as a year to kind of evolve and experiment, but I really want to bring that back. I was really missing that, so I'm back streaming. This month we're going to roll out the first demo drops again on Instagram. So I want to separate this video in two parts. I want to talk first a little bit about my goals for 2024. Not gonna lie, this is actually the first time I've ever written down goals like this. I always used to write goals like finish this track, remix this artist. Those goals would just be so minor that I wouldn't even consider calling them goals, to be honest. Now for the second part of the video, I want to go through 3 of my 10 remixes that I released last year. Since I want to bring back these tutorials, I'm like, well, why not kind of run through them a little bit? Anyway, so I have like a little note list right here. I actually got inspiration from Fabian Mazur, and he said something really smart in his own video.
I think goal setting is very important to stay on track. It's something that I've always made use of, but I'm also putting this video out there for my own accountability. So I actually know that if I put this video on YouTube, I will be held accountable by all you guys watching, which is a great motivator for me.
And the accountability part I find really interesting and something that's so true. And I would want to update you guys on like a quarterly basis on how my goals are going. Where am I at? Am I achieving the goals? Yeah, hopefully this can even inspire you. So for my goals of 2024, I set it up in priority goals and other goals. I want to get my first EP out this year. I'm trying to get this out for so long, and I've been saying this every year. I'm gonna do it this year. I want to crank up my Instagram followers again. I had like a really big growth in the beginning of the year, and then I kind of lost traction, and this mainly had to do with me taking a little break from Instagram because I noticed that releasing a remix every week plus content really took a toll on me. So I needed to take a step back, and Instagram was like, you know what, we're not gonna boost you anymore. And then I lost growth, I lost following. The biggest thing for me is, even though those videos became almost like my trademark, one video would take me 5 to 6 hours to edit and create. You know, that's just editing, and then I have to make the whole remix. I don't know, I couldn't keep up with that, you know? So I want to try to find a way to make content but as fast as possible and still growing in like a good way. I want to have a song release with a bigger artist. I want to have more shows. I mean, I barely play shows, so playing more shows is like a big must for me. I want to try to get between 1 and 3 official remixes for bigger artists. And then I also want to travel more. Before Arcando, I want to do around 10 releases. Then for Crushed Candy, which is my other alias, also 10 releases, and for Rim, which is another alias, another 10 releases. Actually, another big part I don't want to forget are the finances. A lot of producers and artists don't really discuss their finances, but it's actually probably one of the most important parts of, you know, your daily life or career. 2023 has been my biggest year in regards to my income, especially working with fixed clients who pay me on a monthly basis really helps with this. But 2023 has also been the year where I've invested the most amount of money, actually between the 16 and 17,000 euros. A lot of investments went into my flights abroad, buying new equipment, such as studio monitors, a new chair, and a new DJ set. And I also invested a lot in mixing and mastering engineer, legal advisors, and a designer for my artwork and videos. The biggest plus I have, though, is that I'm still living at my parents' place, so I don't have to pay rent, for example. However, I'm definitely trying to find a place soon, but this will also mean more external costs. My goal for this year is to maintain the income and to keep and remain as many partners as I had last year, and to also keep the investment the same or even less than last year. So yeah, these are kind of like my goals for this year. All right, anyways, now we go to the second part of the video, which is actually going through the remixes. And I want to start with the You Somebody drum and bass remix. Someone like you. Okay, so we're in the project right now. I want to go over not the whole project, but just like the main elements. This has been like my biggest one on social media, and it even went viral on SoundCloud, being in like the top 10 drum and bass tracks in the charts, and then it got taken down. So way to go. Project is actually really simple. What I'm gonna do is just start with like the drums in the drop, just a super simple kick. Doesn't have like a lot of low end. It's a really short kick too. Snare. And then we have the entire percussion group, which is a lot. Sounds like this. We have this first layer, shakers from my splice pack. What's really cool about this percussion group is the little percussion shots. Bass group sounds like this. First thing is the brass stab, which is just a sample, actually, funny enough. One thing I did is added the Cymatics Diablo plugin. This one is a great plugin to add punch, to add more, like, it literally says it, add more body to it. A little EQ, just taking out the low end and boosting up a little bit of the high end. Some reverb, G-clip. Then on the group, we have this plugin called Le Funk, which is another free distortion plugin. Then boosting up a little bit of, whoa. Then boosting a little bit of the width. Some EQing, just shaping the sound a little bit. There is isotope trash, just a little bit of distortion on it. So that's the first sound. Then we have the second bass, the main bass, which is this one. It's a really popular Reese, but for some reason a lot of people don't know how this like modulation has been done, and it's actually really simple. If you want to create this sound, the biggest thing is the fine tuning, because to be honest, this patch is super simple. If I turn up the fine tuning, it's just a bass that has no movement. I could use LFO to create that like wobble thing, but it's not going to be the same. Next to the fine tuning part is the distortion. If I would take out the distortion, sounds super off key and the whole effect is gone. So the distortion also adds a lot to it. Quite literally brings it back into key as well. And then we have this little filler bass, which is 2 layered samples. And then the other sound is like that foghorn bass. And it's just vital, bunch of processing, and then the foghorn is also vital. Just wanted to cut off the reverb so the reverb doesn't blend into the next part of the drop. So what I'm doing is I'm modulating the gain and the reverb, so the reverb is vintage verb and is being cut off at the end. And regarding the effects is another big and important thing I do in my drops. There is, for example, this police siren, which is something I do in a lot of my remixes actually, and a lot of other tonal stuff from Analog Lab, for example. And those are basically the most important sounds that I kind of want to show in this project. And then of course we have the vocal, but that's not really... Alright, let's go to the second remix, which is my Labyrinth Formula remix. Sounds like this. Okay, so we're in the... Actually, this project has been made in 2 different projects. There's like the intro project and there is the actual like main track project. The intro sounds like this. Like that intro is so fire. I love what I did here. Basically, it's a bunch of already bounced quanta layers. If you don't know what quanta is, this thing is amazing. If you don't know what it is, basically it's a plugin that allows you to import any sample you want, and it's going to loop tiny milliseconds of that sample and basically create a whole new sort of looped one shot from it. And every shot is panned. So the first one is panned 10% to the right, second 10% to the left. Layering that with my own vocal. I'm gonna just take out the plugins on this. Basically processing, Alter Boy for pitching, and then Autotune, CLA, all the stuff. Some little vinyl crackle as well. And then we have this little thing right here. And then we move on to the next part, which is the main project of the track. Okay, so now we're actually in the main project, and the drop sounds a little different because the samples have been kind of shifted, but basically I can still show you like everything. So I guess, I mean, the breaks.
Equals MC squared. I got a blip inside my head.
Nothing too crazy. There's like the main vocals, there is this sample from my 7, 8, 9, 10 pack. Then there's this Reese bass from Crank That. There's actually a few other sounds from Crank That that I applied to this track, but Reese bass is super simple. It's just, yeah, it's a wavetable and operator. Drop goes mad hard. But yeah, so we're gonna start off with the drums, and they sound like this. So kick, really simple. For the snares, this is actually really interesting. I've never done this before, but you have like your typical snare, right? Which sounds like this. But what gives this all the tonality is actually, I downloaded from YouTube the greatest anime sound effects ever. And I layered this as a top layer on the snare, and that sounds like this. It's almost like a tonal breaking glass. There's like a ton of processing on this though, and then all together you create like this big snare group mixed with some hi-hats. Then we move on to the next section, which are the leads, and they sound like this. Okay, so the first sound is this one. So it's basically replicating the original melody and then adding an harmony on top, which is this one. This actually, that top layer is from Crank That. Then to complement that, we also have the actual vocal from the track, so the acapella from Labyrinth. But it's actually not the same as in the original track, so take this with a grain of salt. But the processing is basically the same. There's a chorus, saturator, Camel Crusher, and then my hypersize rack, which you can also get in my 7, 8, 9, 10 pack. And yeah, I think that's basically the main layer. Then we have this one as well. More init sounding lead. Then we have the chords, and the chords is a big group. They sound like this. The main chord layer is this stack. And these layers are actually separated into 3 different sounds. So we have one that's playing the higher, like the main supersaw stack, then a lower stack, which is in like a lower octave range. And then the root note is basically a sort of init organ sounding chord stack. So the first one, supersaw, second one, and then the third one. Then we have the next layer that's basically like a big arpeggiator. Then we have the entire bass group. Then we have the sub bass. And the sub bass is a sample actually with this preset from Ableton. It's called Kick Tight, and it's actually a great like Ableton stock preset for sub basses. It just makes it sound more mono and more compact. I don't even know what it's really doing, but it's a great preset if you want to use it for sub basses. Then layering that with a bunch of effects, they sound like this. A trick I do in a lot of older records as well, I just use these samples to constantly build tension. The entire time, it's building tension. And then we have 2 other samples that are that come in the drop, and one is from the Barely Alive sample pack, and one is this whoomp sort of sound, and that really, like, you know, adds a lot to you know, to fill out the spaces in the drop. And another thing I do to create like this LFO effect is I use a gain plugin. So this gain automation is adding like this LFO sound, like this volume control. And yeah, and that's, I think, the most important elements I want to show for this project. So then we go on to the next project, the third one, which is my remix for Rehab. Let's go. Okay, so now we're in the project of Run Till Dark, my official remix for Rehab and Now United, which got released in April, I believe. Start off with the drums. They sound like this. So we start off with the kick, which is just a really thumpy, it's actually a kind of weird kick, but it really works. I was looking for more of a boxy kick, not something that's super EDM. Then we're mixing that with a couple claps and some shakers. Some more percussions right here. And then some more human sounding claps. Then we move on to the synths, which is very simple. Barely consists of anything except bass and vocal chops, and then some like little like stutter vocal atmos loops. For the bass, just 2 layers, nothing too crazy. First one is this bass, which is basically the main bass. It's a really warm Reese in Serum. Just has an EQ that's not doing anything, and a separating, so everything below 170 hertz is mono, and then kickstart, and then we have the second bass, which is this one, which is like your gritty top layer. Just a patch I made, 2 oscillators, and then a hyper dimension and distortion, and then mixing that with an arpeggiator, so it's being plucked in a 1/16th rhythm. Bunch of processing. I think the most important ones are Diablo, again, which is for that punch and add more of a clipping sort of sound to it, and then a phaser, and then sidechain, and again also another LFO rhythm. Glued with the vocal chop, since that one is also, you know, has also like this 1/16th stutter effect. Without the LFO tool, it sounds like this. Just chopped up parts that I liked and found a melody that I thought was like, you know, rememberable enough. And then again, LFO tool for the LFO rhythm. But another way for me to add more movement to this loop is I add a reverb automation. So all of the pauses, or like the empty spots in the vocal chop, have a reverb automation, and I use Art's Acoustic Reverb for this. This is like my go-to reverb plugin, yeah, for reverb automations. That's it. Like, the drop is ridiculously simple. And then we have some like background atmos effects, which are these ones. And then a Vox atmosphere loop. It like keeps on building, but really subtly. For these kind of tracks, I don't want to overdo it. There's like a couple other vocal chops that kind of come in every now and then. We have like this piano chords that come in later, which I think is the same one I used in my head. Really wanted to replicate the M1 house piano, but I didn't have the M1 plugin back then. In order for me to replicate it, I just grabbed Contact, the Maverick piano, made the tone as loud as possible so the attack would be like really in your face. ODT there is a slap delay. Then we have a delay that's another. This is more for width. I wouldn't say this is like a real delay effect. I would call this more of like a width unit. And then another transient shaper to boost the attack, lower the sustain, and then some soothe. And yeah, and then this really adds to the drop as well. Just to add that tonality and chord progression into it. Build up is also really simple. That piano comes back in, right? Build synth. Some like Vox ambience, a Reese. So yeah, these are basically the 3 projects out of the 10 remixes I wanted to show you. Hope this was helpful. If you have any other questions, leave them down below and I'll answer them as best to my ability. One big announcement I want to give to all the music producers and other artists out there. I'm dropping my 4th sample pack this Friday on Splice, and it's probably my most versatile sample pack I've ever released. In any case, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys with the next video. Peace.